Welcome to Game Crunch Game of the Year 2023. With Brandon.
But those same people are probably eating paste.
With Nick.
Alright, cool. Let's fucking do this.
And Mike.
He liked it when it came out, and you know how we are.
There are many great games, but there can only be one. There can only be one Game of the Year.
Welcome to Game Crunch, Game of the Year 2023. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today we have Nick.
Hello.
And Brandon.
Hello.
And we are here to wrap up Game of the Year stuff.
We are.
That's the plan.
Oh, yes.
So we got a couple more categories to get through. So that's where we are. All right, you guys ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Let's get this all moving. All right, best story.
Yep.
Obviously, spoiler category. So, nominees are Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Like a Dragon Gaiden, RoboCop Rogue City. So, I have 0 horses in this race. So
I straight up put Spider-Man 2 in here as a filler. Not that it's necessarily a bad story, but like it's not. It's kind of like when you're looking at it with everything else around it, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Everything else is so much better.
Yeah.
I did just half put that in here as like a.
Well, this is before I added
things.
2 more
for sure
things to the list because we only had 3 things, and the Spider-Man 2 was going to be a give me, and then I saw that I was like, can't have that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought this category is was weak, and I was just gonna nuke it. But
yeah, no, I feel you, but I'm gonna. So Nick. You put Baldur's Gate 3 in here, right?
I did, but that's also kind of like it's a
like
weird.
Give me as well, yeah.
Well, it's kind of like a weird place to be, right? Because like you have the overall story of the game, right? But then you also have
your own created story
what you
because
make
of the fact.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I kind of like. I like it in here for that kind of a reason because there's a lot of fluidity to it. You don't have to
I understand where you're
everybody's experience is different, which is nice.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there. I'll go ahead and before I get to the big one, I'll talk about Like a Dragon Gaiden and RoboCop Rogue City.
Sure.
A bit. So, Like a Dragon Gaiden is the sequel to Like a Dragon, which is also called Yakuza 7. Like a Dragon Gaiden's a spin-off where you play as Kiryu again after he faked his own death in Yakuza 6. Spoiler alert, because there's going to be a lot of spoilers for the entire Yakuza series in this conversation.
Even
I
the
apologize.
First one?
Yeah, absolutely. I just told you the ending of part 6. Anyway, moving on. Anyway,
obviously.
So he fakes his death and everything, and he goes to live with this group that is the one that were responsible for, causing him to fake his death, basically being their lapdog. Come to find out, this group is kind of got its own issues and whatnot. You get called out to a place where you're supposed to just be a bodyguard and everything, and working for them. And the whole thing is a setup. It's a setup, and this other group has decided to completely jump you and attack you, yada, 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 blah, 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 because they had a feeling that you were still alive and that your whole death was faked and all this other stuff. This sends you off on, like, a massive, like, kind of like spy-like mission, in a way. It's super neat. You go to this floating castle in the sea that's run by this one family. And the family that's running it, like, puts on illegal street fights and everything inside the castle. And so you have to infiltrate it, and you have to work your way up to take down this family from the inside out, and that sort of thing. It's very cool. It's really neat. You end up meeting, like, a lot of very interesting characters, as you do with any Yakuza game, and you get new gadgets along the way, such as, like, shoes that allow you to boost, kind of like Iron Man, and you get this grappling hook / like rope that you tie people up with that's like attached to your watch, and you have drones that attack people on sight as well. And the same guy that built all your little tools and everything ends up getting kidnapped, and some of the people that are the higher ups in the arena end up stealing all his stuff, so then you have to fight against them using the same items you had. All while there is a coup to dissolve the entirety of the Yakuza within the rankings of the people that are like the higher ups that own this castle floating out on the sea. These people are like super interesting. You end up meeting up with 2 of them, and one of them's like, all right, so when our boss gets out of prison, he's already decided that he's going to dissolve the Yakuza because we would rather, go out with dignity than become like the government's lapdog, essentially. And the only choice for us right now is to dissolve our entire clan and whatnot. So multiple Yakuza get together and they decide that they're going to dissolve as soon as the boss gets out. And you have to help this mission go through. And so then you get hired by the other people to help this mission go through, and you work your way up to setting everything up correct so that you can get away with it and everything will be fine and everyone will be great, all while still trying to conceal your identity, which you're fucking awful at, by the way. And and as more people realize who you are, then the people that you were hiding from just kind of start getting put in the crossfire. Like you faked your own death in 6 to essentially protect many of your family members. Not Yakuza family, but your actual family members. And those people are now in danger because of you. And the groups that you're working with often use them as a sort of like bargaining chip, more or less. But in general, this is a really interesting crime drama that builds on everything we've gotten from the last, 4 Yakuza games. And towards the ending, we even get to the point where we actually cross over with Ichiban, which was the main character in the original Like a Dragon game, which is Yakuza 7. And that character and you come together to, protect the Yakuza as they're about to dissolve and, pretty much bring about the end of that group for good in the area that you're residing in. And when you interact with this character from the other side games and everything, and you all come together and you're having this huge brawl and everything, and it's in one of the buildings that you've known pretty much throughout the entire time that you've been playing the Yakuza games. It really has a sense of nostalgia and a kind of passing of the torch, as well as evolution of the game in general moment. And it's so cool. And it also ends with one of the most emotional scenes I've ever seen in a game. That's super depressing and almost made me break down. And all of this stuff being put together, and the fact that it took a character that was supposed to be gone, that we were moving on from, brought him back and did it in such a way that it didn't feel forced, and it also felt like a general evolution to the story and to the world of Yakuza, and it just did it so well that that's the reason why I put it on the list for best story. But obviously I'm kind of massively biased because I've played every single one of these games, but I do think the story is fucking incredible when you look at what they were able to accomplish by pretty much mixing 2 games together that weren't supposed to cross over initially. And that's such a cool thing that they were able to pull off. So yeah, there's a lot to take in there with that story. But I think it's a very interesting story in general that's really fun and enjoyable.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about RoboCop Rogue City real quick.
RoboCop?
Yeah, RoboCop Rogue City. And I have mentioned this one a little bit, and I'm not going to go... I kind of want to, but at the same time, I actually really want people to play this one. But anyway, RoboCop Rogue City is... it's the continuation of RoboCop completely axing the 3rd movie, and instead just continuing on from RoboCop 2. It's about the... let's see, what's the corruption in the police force and the OCP, and how they've kind of been the shadow organization, kind of puppeteering everyone from the back lines. And there's a lot of backstabbing here and this, that, and the other, where different people have been hired on, but they've been hired on by the same people you're supposedly working for the betterment of society, when in all actuality it's just a way to campaign and use you and many of the other people in the police force as a stepping stone to get themselves elected, so that they can more or less do their own nefarious deeds, but do it as a government official. And this game's incredibly good because of the fact that this game's story is incredibly good because of the fact that it plays a lot with what it means to be human, because you play as RoboCop in this game, and many of his memories and insecurities manifest, such as sanity events, more or less. where you see things that aren't happening and like glitches in your system that are actually just you reliving your nightmares of your past life and having it taken away from you. And the really cool thing about this story is it really just, it does a lot with exploring what makes RoboCop man or machine, which you get to choose which one he is, and the story changes depending on what you do with those choices. And I find that to be like super fascinating that this smaller team was able to pull off such a big project, and the story is very, very, very well written. There's lots of interesting characters here, and in general, the whole pulling apart a like conspiracy to, you know, have as much power as humanly possible in the government and like set people up to believe something is real when it's not. And it does kind of pull the whole, oh, they were the bad guys all along thing. But I think it does it in such a way that it feels like a cheesy 80s movie, which is exactly what it was going for. And it does it incredibly well. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, and then funny. I've actually never seen any of the RoboCop movies.
They're very good. They're very, very good. I highly recommend watching at least the first two. In fact, watch the first two and then play this game.
Okay.
It'd be perfect. It'd be perfect. Moving on to the third and final game I put on this list, which is Alan Wake 2. This is the big one. This is the game that I think should win Best Story and is honestly just kind of a given, more or less. Alan Wake 2 takes place 13 years after the original Alan Wake, both legitimately and in canon in the game's story as well. And what is going on here is a cult named the Cult of the Tree is attempting to follow Alan Wake's hidden manuscript pages from a story that he wrote that he does not remember writing and bring him back from the dark place with any means necessary. And what they're doing is they're like cutting out people's heart and sacrificing them and writing things on it and producing this whole new dimension, which is called the underpass. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but anyway, let's just call it the overlap. I think that's what it's called. The overlap, which is a world between the two dimensions of the dark place and like our real world. And in that place, there resides these monsters that have come back from the dead, essentially. And your job as Saga, not as Alan Wake, is to hunt down and find the criminals that are responsible for this and find as much about this weird cult as humanly possible, while also investigating Alan Wake. Because by the end of the first chapter of this game, Alan Wake comes back from the dark place. And you and Alan Wake are now interacting together. So you have Alan Wake, who is having his like mental breakdown, trying to piece together everything that had happened in the dark place and the story that he supposedly wrote that now exists. And you have Saga, who's trying to piece together the cult that brought him back from the dark place and why they're still going about their rituals and whatnot. And there's a lot more here than meets the eye. It seems like a pretty open and shut case, but this game, I think, does subverting expectations better than any game I've ever seen. It's one of those games that keeps you guessing the whole way through, using its environmental storytelling, because Alan Wake has this thing, which is this lamp that he's able to use to control the different aspects of the dark place. So when you play as Alan Wake, you play as him when he's trapped in the dark place and his experience there. And he is going through trying to figure out, like, why is this cult doing this? Why are they trying to bring Scratch back from the dead? Because they didn't bring Alan Wake, they brought back Scratch. But Saga was thinking they were bringing back Alan Wake, and Scratch is Alan Wake's doppelganger. So they bring back Scratch from, you know, the dark place and from the dead in general. And now Saga finds out from Alan Wake what they did was they brought back the wrong person, and that the person they brought back is his doppelganger that is essentially going to break apart the fabrics of reality as we know it and just destroy the world and rebuild it in his own image. Which is a super interesting concept. And I think the narrative here that really like extends it is the fact that we bring in characters from the entire Remedy universe. We bring in the entire Federal Bureau of Control from the game Control. They are set up here in Cauldron Lake, and they are investigating the AWE, which stands for an Altered World event, which is caused by this cult bringing Scratch back instead of Alan Wake, using their ritual. And you have this group that's standing in your way every step of the way, who is supposed to be the good guys, but are more like the shady government organization. And now you get to see them from a different point of view than what you originally saw them as in Control, the video game. And it's super fascinating how they've been able to mix these two together. In this game, Control is able to use those objects of power to create scenarios and to sort of unlock those places that Alan Wake can unlock using his like lamp. And the lamp actually does tie back into the past Alan Wake games, because that lamp that allows him to traverse between different realities is actually the same lamp that the clicker from the first game came from. So there was a full object of power and not just like one thing, which then revealed that there's kind of multiple things here that Alan Wake has to deal with. On top of all of that, the guy named Thomas Zane from the original game, who Alan Wake was modeled after, essentially, he exists in this one as well, but he made a movie and not just a book and then disappeared. And this movie has some kind of magical power and is sort of like the great white well of this cult. They've been trying to hunt down this movie forever. And a lot of the really interesting elements in this game and like story elements is the environmental storytelling, because of the fact that you can traverse different dimensions and different things by writing it into existence as Alan Wake and by changing it around depending on the like item that you're using. It's really fascinating because you can see the multiple points of view of each one of the characters and the cult as well, based on what Alan has written into the story, because of the fact that you can actually change the story as Alan, because that's kind of his like superpower, essentially. He's able to manipulate time and space by writing it purely into existence, as we found out from the original game, Alan Wake 1. And 2 adds on to this so much so, to the point where we're just kind of bringing in all these different people, and you're kind of starting to wonder, are these people real people, or are these people that Alan wrote in a book, and now that this book and world is being torn apart by Scratch, did these people ever exist to begin with? Like, has the series been lying to us this entire time? And there's a lot of moments in this game that are open up to interpretation of what exactly is going on here, until you get to the very end, which, I'm just going to say this now, I'm not going to spoil the ending. I don't give a shit. I'm not telling you. Because I think it's far more interesting if you find that out for yourself. Because I do think this game is fucking incredible. And I do like the elements here where it kind of like breaks down into like a metafiction, where it's like, okay, how much of any game made by Remedy is real? And how much of it is a story that's just written by Alan Wake? And how much can he change? And all this other stuff. And it's super fascinating taking that element, the story element, and all the elements from the past games that we learned about, and kind of all combining them into a cohesive story that by the end of it, when you figure out what's actually going on, the game flips the script on you so hard that if you go back and play it, you'll be like seeing moments where you're like, holy shit, I can't believe that's what this was telling me, instead of this thing, which is what I thought it was telling me. And I think having those elements in this game is what makes the story so fucking good, because you can go back through it a second time on New Game Plus, and the game also, in the same vein as, the story itself, changes. The story actually changes when you go and play New Game Plus. There's added content here. There's different characters here that weren't in your first playthrough. The jump scares and the enemies are placed in different positions, kind of playing into that meta-narrative of the entire story, and everything is kind of created by Alan Wake, and it can just change on the fly. And I think that's like also super fascinating as you learn more about the game as you go through it. Super cool. Really interesting. I just loved this game. I thought this game was incredible. The story was like just absolutely amazing. So there you go. That's as much as I'm saying about that, because I could go on for hours about this game. And
Okay.
and Nick, I know you said before when you watched the fucking thing at the Game Awards, how is this a horror game essentially?
Yeah, well, yeah, because it was like just
Yeah.
campy.
Yeah. So I will at least break that part down for you because I think it's super fascinating.
Okay.
So that element actually happens in the game, where when you start playing as Alan Wake at one point in time, you are looking into a TV, and then you see a past moment where he was on a talk show. And you appear in like a black room, and then like all the lights come on, and the talk show is playing that song, and the talk show people are pointing on the gigantic monitors where to go, and this, that, and the other. And as you're moving through the space, and the song is playing, and it's being added more to it, and more of the story is being built in front of you as you progress through the level, because the entire thing is supposed to be like an analogy for like Alan Wake's experience with his past game, with his past life, what has happened, why he is now at the place that he was at to begin with. And it's supposed to be presented like a play, more or less, but it's a play that he's walking through and experiencing from like a Hollywood point of view, because all the people that are there giving all this information and playing, it's supposed to be like the Tonight Show, or like with Conan O'Brien, where it's like, oh, play me off, that sort of thing. And they're interviewing some person, and they have like, oh, and we have System of a Down here, and they're gonna sing their new hit song, and blah 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 blah, and they try to tie that shit into someone's new book or whatever, like they do with many late night TV shows when they have multiple guests on, this, that, and the other. And they were able to take that element and put that Hollywood element into it as you're playing through this stage that's explaining Alan Wake's entire backstory and how it may not be as we perceived that it actually was. And as you're being told this story and you're having this whole thing sung to you, you are literally walking through a ever-changing TV set, like more or less, where it's constantly pointing you in the right direction, but also continuously flipping the script on you so that you experience it different. Like when you turn around, like that wall was not there a second ago, but now the main guy that was interviewing me is on a gigantic fuck off screen, and he's telling more of my story, but this isn't the way I experienced this story. This is the way the player experienced the story, and not Alan Wake as the actual character. And it's like super interesting the way that they were able to do this, because it like kind of shows Alan Wake's like insecurities and the problems that he had as a character in the original game, and all the like other games leading up to this one. And it does that in a way that the player can see it as like a play. So like Alan Wake sees it that way as well, and is like experiencing what we experienced as opposed to what he experienced. So it can explain to Alan Wake the kind of shit that the player got up to that may have been different from what he thought, as opposed to what happened to him in the actual game, but what actually happened to the player instead. It's super fucking weird and hard to explain, but it makes sense if you played the game. And it's super cool. Like, if we had a best moment, it would be that entire stage, because it is incredible.
Okay.
I'm done. I've explained mine. Go, Nick.
I don't really have anything too much. I mean, the only one I would have to talk about is... You
still have Spider-Man 2 on here. I'm just saying that.
I do, but it's not going to be anything that's on here. Did either of you play Spider-Man 2?
No.
So
I watched someone play it from a distance, but
so the unfortunate thing about Spider-Man 2 is I do actually really enjoy the game. If you like the first one, you will like this one. It's more of that. So I enjoy the story up to a certain point, and I just feel like it's just very bloated in spots, and I feel like there's just could have been a lot of fat that was trimmed from it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different things going on, like. If you've ever seen any of the Sony, like the newer Sony Spider-Man movies, like Amazing Spider-Man,
yeah,
you know that they try to throw a lot at you at the same time, and that was my concern going into this game, that they would do that. So they
made the same mistake?
They did, but not to the extent of that movie.
Like Amazing Spider-Man 2 extent?
For sure.
Awful.
I mean, Amazing Spider-Man. That's my Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's my
I liked
Spider-Man.
Amazing Spider-Man, but Amazing Spider-Man 2, much like you were just saying, was over bloated and just tried to cram
So,
into the movie.
I know I'm not making a very convincing argument, which is fine because I don't expect this to win anything in this category. Like I said, I kind of put that here to flesh it out.
Yeah.
The overarching story, very good. I feel like it would have been much higher on my list if a lot of the fat got trimmed out.
Mm-hmm.
And just to go into that a little bit, they introduce multiple villains and like lead-ins for multiple villains. So like, yeah, you have Venom, who obviously makes an appearance in this game.
Yeah,
because you see that in the trailers. But they also like start to introduce you to Carnage. They start to introduce you to oh god, what was it now? It's escaping my brain. I forget what it was, but they also like lean into a lot of like of the already established ones that they have. So like there's this whole thing with Mysterio where he has like these challenge levels that you go to, and there's a whole side story with that. And there's these like weird side missions for these cultists called the Followers of the Flame.
Okay.
And like you don't know what that is basically until you finish.
Let's go.
Yeah, until you finish that whole side quest storyline, and you're like, that was a very roundabout way to introduce to me what you introduced to me. I get it, but like there was no better way. So I think if the game had just kind of tried to focus on maybe sticking to the core story of, Peter Parker Spider-Man getting having the Venom symbiote attached to him, and then hilarity ensues, as it were. I think it would have been a lot better because I feel like it was just a bit too long, and there's just a bit too much side nonsense to do. Overall, did I enjoy the game? Yeah, I mean, I don't regret playing it. I might end up playing it again at some point just to maybe, I don't know, see if I can get a different perspective on it at another time. I think I spent like 30 to 40 hours on it.
Nice.
All in all. But it's not very deep story. Like, I mean, it's a very one-dimensional story, in my opinion. But not terrible, but I don't know. There's a lot going on, but I already know, like I said, it's not even going to get a runner-up spot in this category, truthfully. I kind of already had my mind made up even before you talked about it. I figured Alan Wake was going to be the winner of this.
Alan Wake 2 is pretty much my winner, easily. I would say Baldur's Gate 3 is probably second because of the fact that you can build your own story. And I really like a Dragon Gaiden because, like I said, the fact that they were able to bring someone back from the dead and build an entire game around explaining what happened, essentially, and make it make sense was like super impressive. And that also is kind of gonna lead into our next category as well when we talk about that. So
for sure. So I mean, realistically, I feel like this is your category to kind of decide, Brandon, because I'm kind of cool with whatever you go with. As bad as that sounds, I mean, I do want to play Alan Wake 2. I really do want to play that.
Yeah, that's why I tried to leave the big twist and all that information out of the discussion, because I do feel like giving some spoilers, totally fair. I think maybe when we talk about best story in the future, we don't give away the ending. I was just trying to do, because I really don't like the idea of giving away the full ending and like just giving some people some general spoilers, and if they think that's interesting, then they can go play the whole ass game. So
I think the only other game I'd really vouch for here to at least be in the top 3 would be Baldur's Gate, but for the reason that I said prior to you talking about Alan Wake, which is it's got its own good story experience. Like the main storyline, very good, but since it's one of those games that you kind of can really just shake up your it's D&D. So like if you've played D&D, like you can run the same campaign twice with the same people and it goes differently.
Yeah,
so I think
that's the same with like Divinity 2, and I think that they do a really good job. Larian Studios is a really good job with this game type, and I think that Baldur's Gate 3 is no different.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like that should at least be in one of the runners-up spots for sure.
No, I agree 100%.
So
the question is, depending on, based on what I just told you guys, what would you rather have as the third one, Like a Dragon or RoboCop? Because I'm good with either one. like I said, I have a general bias towards the Yakuza and Like a Dragon
I was
series.
gonna say I'd be cool
But
giving it to
RoboCop
Yakuza.
RoboCop is also like really impressive that they were able to retcon a full ass movie and make it make sense and do a really good job of telling a story.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like this is a smallish company. You know what I mean? This is a very small company that put
Yeah, it's definitely a very weird thing to come out of. Like, not saying it's a weird game, but like definitely like by all means, the deck is stacked against this developer for that being a decent game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. My main thing is like, is how good the Yakuza story good because I've followed it for 15 fucking games, or is it good because it's legitimately a good story? And I don't know because of my own general bias. So that's why I'm saying whatever you guys would like to do, I'll go with.
What are you thinking, Mike?
I don't care either way.
All right, and then we're going with my bias and Like a
very
Dragon.
enthusiastic.
Third place. There we go. Easy.
From Mike.
No.
Like a Dragon Gaiden is our runner up as well.
Works for me.
Cool.
All right. Best story goes to Alan Wake 2, runners up Baldur's Gate 3, and Like a Dragon Gaiden. All right. Next category. Most anticipated upcoming game.
Yep.
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Tekken 8, Stalker 2, Hellblade 2.
So funnily enough, 2 of these release in 2 days. On the exact same day.
Yeah.
And I've already bought one of them. Can you guess which one?
Like a Dragon Infinite. Well, I was going to say, actually, 2 of these games launch before this episode launches.
That's true. Yeah, 2 of these games launch on Thursday.
So this is an interesting one for me because the one that's number 1 for me is a series or a game that went from literally no interest to I'm all in on this bitch. And that's
Final Fantasy.
That's definitely Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, that's
sure,
number 1 for me as well. 100%.
Only because like I definitely looked at the first remake as like a rah-rah old man like yells at Cloud type.
We both did.
Deal.
We both 100% did.
Man yells at Cloud in 2 instances. You know what I mean? Like actually yelling at Cloud and then like fuck this shit. But since actually it's Brandon's fault because we talked about it. I'm just 1,000% more interested in Rebirth now that like the overall kind of idea concept is clearer to me.
You could thank my stream for that because they were like, "You're looking at this from the wrong perspective," and they kind of like broke it down for me as I was like playing the game, and I was like, "Oh, you're kind of right, guys.
For sure,
I see what you're saying. Yeah." So I can't take all the credit for that one. That was a group effort.
I'm incredibly excited for that. I still actually haven't played Intergrade, so I do need to do that. But with all the trailers that have been coming out, they've been sprinkling out, and these screenshots and stuff, like we got some good looks at Kaith Sith.
We did.
Good looks at Yuffie. Like the game looks beautiful. It looks very good. I'm happy that like there was a fear in my heart that they were going to be like, oh, PS4 and 5. So glad they didn't do that.
Same. I feel like that allows it to have like a lot bigger of a space to play in now. And then when you look at some of the like screenshots and video footage that we've seen, holy shit, is this game massive compared to the first one.
Well, yeah, because now FF7 Remake consisted primarily of Midgar.
Yeah.
This is now you're getting into the world. And I mean, I would say, as somebody who's played the original one on PlayStation, like that game seemed, for that time, mind you, like what's that, 97, 96, whichever.
I think it's 96. I'm not 100% sure.
A game from that time, like that seemed pretty big then, in my opinion. So like this is just, it's insane what they're doing with this. So that's definitely like number 1.
Also, it was 97, January 31st, 1997. So
I
we're
was
close.
4 years old.
I wasn't.
Also, we're getting into. I mean, not that Remake didn't have a lot of good music. Don't get me wrong, but Rebirth is kind of where we get into a lot of stuff that I like. So we're gonna get like Cosmo Canyon, and we're gonna get Golden Saucer, and You know, a lot of these awesome bangers. I think I forget what else. What else is going on? But I also like. Are we gonna have like the Ruby weapon fight on the battlefield and the Emerald weapon fights and like shit like that? Like that shit's gonna be sweet.
Wait, so is the big moment happening at the end of this? Because I think I read somewhere that at the end of this, the big, moment is happening.
Do you want to hear my theory on what that moment's going to be? Is that too spoilery? I mean, the game is 20 years old.
I also have a theory on that moment, and that's the reason I brought this up. Yeah.
So here's how I think it's going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I full on, and you can quote me on this now.
Are you both thinking Cloud?
Cloud's dying.
That's what I was thinking.
Cloud is dying.
100%.
And people who I've told that to, they're like, "You're fucking nuts, Nick. Why would they do that?" I was like, because think about it. It would be such a power move.
It would.
Square Enix just showing their nuts.
Love it. I would.
You know what I mean?
It so much.
So I feel like what's gonna happen is I don't know. Because as far as we know, and as far as you and I have
man with the name of Z and has Ack in his name could easily take the place easily. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So my thing is, Aerith is the only person who we believe knows what's happening.
Yes.
So like, I don't know.
This is gonna be really confusing for Mike.
For sure. I don't know how that's all gonna fold out. Realistically, I was like, oh. Is Aerith going to go get stabbed and Cloud's going to try and save her, then he's going to get stabbed? Is that how it's going to go? And then Zack's the main character?
I hope so, to be completely honest.
I think it's going to be, maybe not exactly a situation like that, but I think it's going to be a situation where, like, it's the setup for somebody to die, and, like, either Cloud's going to try and save her, or hear me out. Hear me out. Aerith knows, and she's like, you can stand right there. I'm going to stand over here, actually. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to swap with you if that's cool. Because in my mind, if nobody else but me knows, I'm just, what? Get over there. Get fucking over there. What are you doing?
There's no way that they pull like a Metal Gear Solid 2.
100%.
Like,
they totally are.
For sure.
Yeah,
no
they are. They are. The writing is on the wall.
Here's my thing.
You know what? Actually, you're right. We gave Final Fantasy 16 the biggest disappointment of this year. So let's just see them carry it over into the next one.
No.
The only reason...
Hot take. It would not be a disappointment if they did this. It would actually be an improvement in every way, shape, and form.
The only reason why I think Zack is going to be the main character...
Yeah.
They re-released Crisis Core.
That's what I was thinking too. I 100% thought that had something to do with this whole thing too.
If FF7 Remake, Rebirth, whatever the last one's going to be called, is its own kind of revisioning of the story.
A Rebirth's not the last one. There's a third one after this.
That's why I said Remake, Rebirth, and then whatever the third one is.
Reimagining.
I don't know, fucking...
Reawakening? I don't know what the third one
is. Probably like a cooler... fucking thing, but like,
but you know what? I think so many people will be angry at the third game that called Refund.
Riri Kung Fu Generation. My thing is, I think the fact that they re-released Crisis Core, right, which at this point, I won't say has nothing to do with the Remake 7 series, but like realistically, probably isn't as tightly wound to it as prior.
Well, especially since the ending of Crisis Core changed, according to...
Yes! So that's what I'm saying. I think that right there tells you everything you need to know about... Yeah. They reintroduced Zack, they changed the ending of the game. I think he is going to be the main protag for the last one. It's going to be like the third one's going to be like, oh, you killed my friend, I'm going to kill you. Bop, bop, bop. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be like... As corny and cliche as it sounds, I don't have the writing prowess to describe how it's going to go, but I think that's kind of how it's going to unfold. So I'm really excited to see if they have the nuts to do that, and I think they do. Other than Rebirth, I'm very excited for Tekken 8. That does come out in 2 days from now.
It does.
You
already know about my incitement for Infinite Wealth. I'm
not
very
much to say about Tekken 8 rather than it's a fighting game. It's getting very good reviews. So did Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Both got
sure
like 9 and 10.
It's definitely the Animal Crossing mini game that's got Infinite Wealth up there. I 100%.
I'm excited for Tekken Bowling. That's what I'm excited for in Tekken.
Have you seen the Animal Crossing mini game for Infinite Wealth?
I did. Yeah, I definitely did.
You have a whole ass island just like Animal Crossing.
I guess the last one for me personally would probably be Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Yeah.
Only because I haven't played it. I don't actually think I own a copy of it. I have to check my collection. So I know I have Paper Mario for the 64. I know I have Sticker Star, and I think I have the Wii one, whichever the fuck that was called.
Super Paper Mario.
Super Paper Mario. I always laugh when I talk about Paper Mario with you guys because Paper Mario, if you remember, when I first joined this podcast talking to you guys, I think that was like one of the first games I talked about with you was Sticker Star.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is the first Paper Mario I ever made, and you guys were like, what? Or ever played? And you guys were like, excuse me?
Bro, you gotta play actual Paper Mario.
We have to blame you for this, Travis.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't have been my choice. And I was like, because I remember specifically being like, I don't get the hype. Like, this guy sucks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right. You had every right to not get the hype with that fucking garbage.
But I mean, especially though, considering the fact that you're like, hey, Miyamoto, you don't make Paper Mario great? Stickers. And he's like, oh yeah, let's make this game, Nick. And you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I went to Japan and I was like, I've never played this series before, but you know what you should do? You ever play Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories? Do it like that.
Yeah, but Chain of Memories was good.
It wasn't.
I disagree. I think Chain of Memories is one of the better Kingdom Hearts games.
Yeah, for me personally, my 3 would be 7 Rebirth, followed by Thousand Year Door and Tekken 8. We have Hellblade 2 on here. I've never played the first Hellblade.
That's a shame. It's a very good game.
I do want to say I do like what they're doing with the sequel, where it's actually it's digital only, and it's actually like $20 cheaper.
That's what they did with Like a Dragon Gaiden.
Which I'm like, I've been waiting for that.
I'm not sure.
I've been waiting for that because I feel like charging the same price for a digital game versus a physical one, goofy.
So Hellblade 2 is in an interesting spot because a lot of people are running with a bullshit narrative that it's going to be like a 4-hour long game, which is not true. They said that it's going to be a shorter game like the original, which means it's going to be like 7 or 8 hours long, which is totally fine for a narrative-driven, third-person action adventure with puzzle element experience. That's my opinion. Especially when you only charge $49.99 for it or put it on Game Pass, which I think is just all around great. The original Hellblade I quite liked a lot, actually. I really liked its way of tackling people's like mental health problems and that sort of thing, and the stigma that comes with it, and how it kind of broke down that stigma more or less. I thought it was a very interesting and well-made game. I am excited for the second game, but I'm not excited as like 5 of these other games. Oh well, yeah. It's going to be the first one I drop from this list, to be completely honest.
Hellblade?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I also never played Stalker, so
Stalker's fucking incredible.
Lost on me.
Same.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to...
Is Stalker the game where the character is holding the pistol, but he's holding it like a bigger weapon, and it's like the text is like you shoot better because you're afraid of shooting off your fingers?
Could be.
I think so.
Okay.
All right. So the original Stalker was like very Slavic jank, that sort of thing. But
sure.
It's actually oh god, why can't I think of it? They're having a war right now. Why isn't my brain working? They're Ukrainian devs. That's what it is. There we go. Thank you. This game is very interesting because it takes like a war-torn post-apocalyptic world and does like RPG elements with it and everything, where like you go around and you do quests for people just to try to get by. But on top of all of this, due to all the massive amounts of radiation, you've also got a lot of survival horror and like supernatural elements to the game as well that are created by that radiation and by that like destruction of the environment and the apocalypse in general. So it's kind of like if Fallout was good, and that's part of the reason why Stalker is Stalker 2 is something I'm looking forward to because it looks very, very good. Like just in general, the actual world design and the gunplay from everything I've seen. I'm very excited from everything that's been put out there, and it looks like it's also going to be following kind of in the same footsteps as the original series, where it does have that open-ended survival horror / like RPG elements, and I loved that about the original game, and I thought that making a new one is like something that's really been on my radar for a while. I've been waiting for this to get announced, and it's been pushed back 2 years now. For 2 years now because of all the shit that's been going on, which more power to them. Take as much time as you need. Your building that you were making this game in literally got bombed. I'm just happy that they survived and everything was okay. But I do think it's going to be a very interesting game when we see it like come to fruition and actually have the ability to sit down and play it. I think this is probably going to get a lot more people into the Stalker universe because it looks like a much easier barrier to entry, because the original game was entirely PC based and was very shoddily put together because they didn't really know what they were doing. Like, the game had a lot of heart, and it had like some really fascinating ideas that have carried over into other games. Like, for instance, the series Escape from Tarkov, if you know of that series, it exists entirely because of Stalker. Like, Stalker is what Escape from Tarkov is based off of and built around. So, like, if you've ever like looked at that and thought about like, oh, it's super interesting, like getting these items in like a militaristic zone and then bringing them back to your base and building up your base and yada yada yada, blah blah blah, all this other stuff. That was in a single player game originally, and that game was Stalker, and it was very interesting and very well done. It just kind of different from anything else game that you could play. It was also like beautiful to look at, and it has not aged well at all. Like, it looks like absolute dog shit now. The original ones do, but Stalker 2 looks like it's going to be incredible, and I'm super excited for this. So yeah, that's why I put this one on the list.
Okay.
I mean, it's also on Game Pass, so you got no excuse not to try it, at least.
Yeah.
Again, I would probably drop this one. I just wanted to put it on here because there needs to be more Stalker love. And when it comes down to it, I'm super excited for Rebirth, like we've already talked about. Infinite Wealth, I've literally already bought because I'm so excited for it. Tekken 8, I'm a massive Tekken fan. I love Tekken. It's like one of my favorite fighting games. So my picks out of this entire list is probably Rebirth, Thousand Year Door, and Infinite Wealth. Okay. And it hurts me that I'd have to drop off Tekken, Hellblade, and Stalker, but those are the three that I think are the most interesting on this list: the Rebirth, Thousand Year Door, and Infinite Wealth. So that's my takeaway.
What are your feelings, Mike?
I'm fine with Final Fantasy VII. Agree on Paper Mario. I really couldn't care about Like a Dragon, so that's where I am on this list.
Okay. What about the other three? Any of those you care about?
Hellblade. Yeah.
So I guess Nick is the deciding factor then what he wants to do.
Number one's FF7 for sure.
Yeah, easily.
Number 2 is Paper Mario for sure.
Yep, also easy.
I am more invested into Tekken than anything, so Tekken would be my number 3.
I'm fine with Tekken taking the third
spot. But I also understand how excited you are for Like a Dragon.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. Like I said, it's my own general bias. If you guys want to put Tekken, that's fine. If you want to put Hellblade too, I'm also down for that. Yeah, just fucking rock, paper, scissors for it. Flip a fucking coin.
What you want, Nick? What you want, Nick?
Tekken.
You want Tekken?
I'll take Tekken. Yeah, let's go.
Sorry, I thought I made that clear.
No. Well, you did, but I wasn't sure if you were going to let Brandon seduce you into doing Like a Dragon.
No, I dropped it. I told you it's my own general bias. It's fine.
Most anticipated upcoming game goes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, soon to be next year's most disappointing game. And
that would be wild back to back.
Back to back Square Enix flops. That would be incredible.
Runners up: Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, and Tekken 8. So we are.
Nice.
And that wraps up this episode of Game Crunch Game of the Year 2023. That's our final categories. We still have one episode left where we go over the podcast top 10 as well as our personal top 10 list for 2023. Stay tuned to that coming out within the next week. If you want to check out our other episodes, you can find them on Amazon, YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. We have our website, game-crunch.com, which has all of our old episodes. And if you want to reach out to us, you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. And with that said, until next episode, game on.
Also, I might have to mute my mic a few times during this. I was telling Brandon I went to MagFest this weekend, and I'm feeling pretty okay. I don't feel like I have any sort of COVID related sicknesses. I did wake up today, and my throat's kind of so sometimes I got a little bit just clear that out.
That's just con rot.
I'm hoping that's what it is. I don't think, because I've had COVID, it doesn't feel like COVID coming on.
Yeah.
But God knows I'll wake up tomorrow and be like, oh no.
The con flu, as they used to call it back in the day.
I normally don't get anything from that, but I said today, it's actually, I'm one of those people that rarely get sick.
I used to run a convention every year with several other people, and by the end of it, we were all just out for a week, just completely dead. We were always so sick by the end of it.
So
and COVID, honestly, not really a respiratory thing right now either. So,
yeah.
So I was like, oh god, I just listen. As long as I don't wake up tomorrow with aches,
then
I'll be like, okay, cool. But if I wake up tomorrow and it hurts to sneeze, I'll be like, oh no.
No, that still could be just good old helping of pneumonia instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd rather have that.
Casual pneumonia.
I'd rather have pneumonia.
Yeah.
Pneumonia.
So.
Epona.
My Sharona.
Have a corona.